Hey everybody, this is actually going to be a booking challenge response for Double Cross King. Um, for those that don't know, just want to say Double Cross King finally got a webcam, and he's been putting on some great videos lately, so definitely subscribe to him. But don't have a lot of time, so let's get right down to it. TNA in 2007, this is just going to be one video. I'm not going to give you a marathon of videos, Lucid LJ style, but just do it like this. TNA in 2007 was, I thought it was a good year, but, while it was booking for this whole year with my pen and paper, I realized it's not that easy. It's not that easy to make every single match make sense. You know, especially with TNA, that the roster is just so stacked. When you have this much talent, it's tough to, it's tough to get a feel for why some of these matches are important. So I'm just gonna this is just what I got. This is the best I could do. I think TNA could have done a better job in 2007. I mean, definitely, this is the most stacked roster in the history of professional wrestling. TNA in 2007. That's just my opinion. And a lot of people complain about Bound for Glory, how Samoa Joe should have won the belt at Bound for Glory 2006. And I definitely agree with that. I would have went Joe versus Jarrett. Samoa Joe sends Jeff Jarrett packing, gives him this little hiatus. Joe takes the NWA World Title. I would have scrapped that fans revenge match at No Surrender. I just would have scrapped it, and just build up Joe versus Jarrett, because Christian and Sting, they already planted seeds for that at Hard Justice. So you might as well just follow it up with Christian and Sting. Christian and Sting never did a big time pay-per-view blow-off match, and I think maybe Bound for Glory was the first time these two guys could meet, go at it, just a straight-up singles match. The rest of Bound for Glory 2006 I keep the same. Sabin and Low Key, that was a masterpiece, the best Bound for Glory match of all time, in my opinion. AJ and Daniels versus LAX in the steel cage. Just keep that whole card the way it was. All right, so move on to TNA Genesis 2006. Now, I know a lot of people going to give me heat for this whole thing, but I was actually going to start off Kurt Angle, his arrival in TNA. You could do the whole Joe thing, the Kurt Angle's debut on Impact with Joe. You could do that, but, after Bound for Glory, I would have Low Key come out, and Low Key be the guy to, step up to the plate and say to Kurt Angle, "You're brand new in TNA, but if you think you're going to go through everybody, you got to go through me first." You could just make Low Key out to be a monster. Angle's return and Angle's debut in TNA was so big. In my opinion, you don't have to throw him against the biggest guy in the company, Samoa Joe. I think Angle's return would have got used by itself. So you could definitely save Angle versus Joe for the future. So I would have just done Angle versus Low Key. Excellent match. It's a dream match of mine. It just pisses me the fuck off how these two guys are in the company for a whole year and they never touched. So, but TNA was stacked in 2007, so I can't really criticize them too much. I would have done Samoa Joe versus Abyss. Samoa Joe's first title defense, face Abyss in the no disqualification match. Joe gets a nice friendly win over Abyss. Pretty solid match. I would do Christian versus Sting, just a rematch, straight up singles. LAX versus Team 3D. LAX is the new tag team champions. AJ versus Daniels, #1 contender match. AJ and Daniels lost the titles, let them go at a #1 contenders match. Chris Sabin versus Austin Aries for the X Division title. Have Sabin and Aries have a nice little series of matches on pay-per-view. Go AMW versus the Naturals. Pretty solid pay-per-view, it looks like on paper. All right, so next up we'll move on to TNA Turning Point 2006. Christopher Daniels will win his #1 contender bout and challenge Samoa Joe for the belt. Joe versus Daniels pay-per-view main event. I mean, can't argue with that. I would do Kurt Angle versus Low Key again, just a straight-up rematch. Have Angle go over twice in a row, but Low Key gets a huge rub just being in main event caliber matches with Angle. I would go Christian versus Sting, steel cage match, 6 sides of steel. This is the blow-off match. I would actually have AJ Styles turn heel inside with Christian. You could do a thing where AJ was kind of, pissed off about him and Daniels losing the belt, so he just snapped and wants to be on the winning team, and the winning team will be Christian Cage because he was the previous NWA champion. I don't know. That kind of makes sense. Maybe not, but that's what I would go with. Chris Sabin and Austin Aries go at it again really hard. Just another great match between those two guys. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all that's worth talking about. The rest of the card will be posted in the description. All right, next up, Final Resolution 2007. Go Samoa Joe versus Christian for the belt. Go Kurt Angle versus Christopher Daniels. Just a special attraction match, Angle versus Daniels. It's pretty much what it is. Not really much of a storyline there. LAX versus Jerry Lynn and Alex Shelley. You could do a whole thing where Jerry Lynn's trying to teach Alex Shelley the ropes. Chris Sabin versus Sonjay Dutt, straight up X Division match. You could go Low-Key versus Austin Aries, Kaz versus Rhyno, Sting and Abyss versus America's Most Wanted. I mean, the rest of the undercard, not a lot of storyline in this show. Just a lot of nice singles matches. All right. Next up, we get TNA Against All Odds. Now, a lot of people will probably hate me for this, but the main event for this show, to stick it to the Against All Odds theme, I go Angle versus everyone in the X Division in a gauntlet match. So you get Angle. Basically, Angle's going to go through everybody in the X Division. Low-Key, Aries, Shelley, Lethal, Kaz, Dutt. Um, Pretty much going to run through the whole X Division. But however, all these matches will be very, very good. He's not going to squash anyone. Everyone's going to look great in this match. Angle's going to do his best to make sure each and every guy looks great. And then it'll come down to Angle and Low-Key. And this is when Angle finally defeats this is when Low-Key actually defeats Angle. But Angle would still look like a beast because he went through everyone in the X Division. But Low-Key would finally get the win on Kurt Angle. That would kind of end that whole Low-Key and the X Division feud with Kurt Angle. I go Sabin versus Petey Williams, X Division title. I go a four-way match: Samoa Joe versus Christian versus Daniels versus AJ. Just for the world title, special attraction, fatal four-way match. I think that would be a solid match. Sting versus Abyss versus LAX. You could do this whole thing with Sting and Abyss turning on each other. In a tag match. Sting loses the pinfall, then Abyss snaps and goes crazy. LAX is in the middle of a nice tag team title reign. All right, so next up we move to Destination X. Now the main event for Destination X, I would actually let the X Division guys go out and main event the show. I go Sabin versus Low-Key versus Aries. I just let these guys just go out there and do their thing. That's pretty much it. And I would actually have Chris Sabin retain. I'll go Samoa Joe versus Christian for the TNA title or NWA title, whatever you want to call it. The straight up singles match, pretty much it. You can have Tomko and AJ try to interfere, but Joe is too strong and fights off the interference. Pretty much just build up Joe as a monster, babyface champion, or kind of like a tweener champion. It doesn't have to be a babyface or a heel. Angle versus Robert Roode, just a special attraction. You could do something at Impact where Robert Roode was, jealous of Kurt Angle for getting so much attention. This is where you finally do the Sting versus Abyss grudge match. This first match out of this series, and the number one contenders match. You go AJ and Daniels again. Number one contenders for the TNA title at Sacrifice. All right, so Lockdown. I go Christian Cage, AJ Styles, Tomko, Robert Roode, and Low-Key. Christian, AJ, and Tomko want the best guy from the X Division, so they recruit Low-Key. They would face Samoa Joe, Angle, Daniels, Rhyno, and Kazarian in the main event. And the same stipulation. Whoever took the pinfall or whoever got the pinfall will get a title shot in the future. Angle and Joe actually argue over the who's going to get the title shot or who's going to get the pinfall, and somehow Christopher Daniels ended up getting it, so they're pissed off about that. So Joe and Angle just start fighting with each other. So Daniels is the number one contender once again. We go Sting versus Abyss, Lockdown. These two just have a bloody, knockdown, drag out type of match. And I thought this should have been done at Lockdown. Thought it would have made more sense. Our X Division title, I go Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley. And I would actually have Alex Shelley win this match. Alex Shelley, the new X Division champion, finally dethroning Chris Sabin. That's pretty much it. I mean, LAX versus Team 3D. You could do the whole blow-off match at Lockdown. All right, what's next? Sacrifice. TNA Sacrifice. Sacrifice 2007. All right, main event, I go Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels. Well, actually, I'm sorry. You would actually have AJ Styles would have won that number one contenders match, not Daniels. Daniels got the pinfall lockdown, so I think it makes sense to go AJ, Joe, and Daniels. Triple threat match. This time for the main event. People might think this will be taking place a little bit too soon, but let these guys go out there and rock the house. I would go Christian and Kurt Angle. You could do a little feud with Kurt Angle and Christian. Just a nice little mini feud. X Division title, Alex Shelley versus Austin Aries. Alex Shelley won the X Division title, so him and Aries go at it. a nice X Division type of match. Low Key versus Kaz, special attraction. Yeah, pretty much it. Pretty much that's it. LAX versus AMW. They could plant the seeds here for Harris and Storm to start turning on each other. All right, so let's move on to Slammiversary. Slammiversary. I just go with generic King of the Mountain match. Samoa Joe versus Low Key versus Sting versus Abyss versus Kaz versus Christian. A 6-man King of the Mountain match. I thought that would have been fine. LAX versus AJ and Daniels. AJ and Daniels actually lose the championship match to LAX. So AJ Styles actually is pissed off, and him and Daniels, they don't really turn on each other, but they just want to go their separate ways. They still have respect for each other, even though AJ is a heel and Daniels is pretty much a face. Now Daniels is pretty much wants to take a journey to find something more, to find something else, and that other guy that he's looking to conquer is Sting. Next up, we have X Division title. We have Austin Aries versus Petey Williams. AMW versus Sabin and Shelley. You could actually have AMW just lose another match, build some tension to the split between Harris and Storm. I'm going to start tagging up Sabin and Shelley as the Motor City Machine Guns. Help build them some momentum heading into Bound for Glory. Angle versus Tomko. Angle wants to get his revenge on Christian Cage's stable. Takes out Tomko in a nice special attraction match. All right, so next up we have Victory Road. Victory Road actually goes Samoa Joe and Angle teaming up to take on LAX. LAX will win this match. Joe and Angle set up some tension for the big match at Bound for Glory. You could do AJ Styles and Christian versus Sting and Daniels. Daniels actually wants to tag up with Sting because he's pissed off about the way AJ Styles reacted after the loss to LAX. And in this match, you could actually have Sting turn on Daniels, just leave Daniels out for dead, and just leave him to get beat. So this pretty much was plant the seeds for Sting and Daniels. AJ and Christian, they're still pretty much on good terms. And you could do a big Ultimate X match, just like they did at Victory Road. All right, TNA Hard Justice. I'd actually have Low Key, just attack Samoa Joe and Impact instead of a big Samoa Joe versus Low Key match. So they main event Hard Justice. I'll go Kurt Angle versus Christopher Daniels. You could have this be a #1 Contenders match for Bound for Glory. And then in this match, you could have Sting come out and cost Christopher Daniels the match, because he doesn't think Christopher Daniels deserves all the attention that he's getting. And, for him disrespecting Sting the way he did by, calling him out and trying to make it sound like Daniels is on the same level as Sting. That's pretty much it for Hard Justice. That's what we're talking about. You could have LAX versus AMW for the last time, and this could be the official heel turn for James Storm to turn on Chris Harris. Oh, I actually got Hard Justice. You could do AJ Styles and Christian versus Kazarian and Sonjay Dutt. And, you could kind of see Christian getting a little bit more cockier and AJ Styles finally breaking off and wanting to become babyface again. You could do something like that. All right, TNA No Surrender. I'll go Angle, Sting, and Christian teaming up to face Joe, AJ, and Daniels in a 3-on-3 tag match. X Division title, #1 Contenders for Bound for Glory. Kaz versus Lethal. LAX versus Austin Aries and Low Key for the tag team titles. Shelley and Sabin versus 3D. So it's a pretty good card. Not amazing, but all right. So this is the last pay-per-view that I'll talk about. TNA Bound for Glory 2007. They've been building up Angle and Joe forever, so you finally have Samoa Joe and Angle have their match. I'd actually have Samoa Joe defeat Kurt Angle clean. These guys could just have an epic match. Christopher Daniels versus Sting. No, this is not going to go 7 minutes. Let these guys go out there for 15 to 20 minutes. Just put on a great match. Have Sting put over Christopher Daniels. You actually have Sting turn heel leading up to this match, and Christopher Daniels wins the match as a mega babyface. All right, I go AJ Styles versus Christian. These two guys kind of jealous of each other. Both guys want to be the leader of the stable, and they pretty much have turned on each other. They're both kind of in between. Not really heel or faces, but just an excellent match for AJ and Christian. Let them go out there and just rock the house. You actually have Jay Lethal defeat Austin Aries to win the X Division title. That could be a great match. You have the Motor City Machine Guns face LAX and win the tag team titles. You have Chris Harris and James Storm have their Texas Death match at Bound for Glory. You could do Low Key versus Kaz, special attraction match. Just a nice athletic match. You could have a Monsters Ball match. Roode versus Rhyno versus Abyss. That could be your Monsters Ball. So that's pretty much it. That's my TNA 2007. I don't know how this came out, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All right.